Good morning or good afternoon. I don't know which one it is. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you a small presentation on the rapid alert system for food and feed and multi-country outbreaks as requested by Professor Alan Riley. Let's get into it. So first of all, what is iRASFF, or the Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed? It's been around for more than 40 years, but its most lasting legal basis, let's say, is the General Food Law, the cornerstone legislation of the European food safety system. And then precisely there we have Article 5052. What does it say? Well, the Rapid Alert System is a network, and it's been erected for notifying direct or indirect risks to human health deriving from food or feed, because feed was added at that stage because we had a very good experience with the fact that a feed incident may well lead to very important food safety risks. Now, the network is mandatory in use when serious risk has been identified with the same scope, but it can be used in a larger risk scope. Now, in 2021, the system has been used again more than ever before. To be precise, almost 24,000 times. And then we're talking about notifications by members or member countries, of which 4,600 and a little original notifications, and the rest follow-up notifications. Original notifications are identified by the fact that the country reports a product hazard combination for the first time. So in a specific product, hazards were found, and that's the reason to notify the system. Now, a lot of follow-up, as you could see, and in addition to that, there's even a new tool that we've launched in 2019, which is called the conversation module. And this is a very low threshold type of system where inside the notification, we can have a conversation, a chat, like a WhatsApp. You can really picture that because it's a chat question and response type of exchange, which allows people in member states that might have specific questions about notifications to address these, to ask questions, and to get quick responses by other countries involved. Let's move on a little. So, okay, well, then we come up with another term. We had the Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed, and then we're talking about the Alert and Cooperation Network. Now, this is a relatively new term because it's embedded in the 2020 IMSOC regulation. And now IMSOC is the Integrated Management System for Official Controls. And it's sort of the overarching DG Sante IT system composed with different components that are helping member states exchange information on official controls carried out in the agri-food chain under the legal basis of the new, not so new at this moment anymore, Official Control Regulation 2017/625. Now, this Alert and Cooperation Network has components of its own, the Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed, but also the Administrative Assistance and Cooperation Network. And actually, that network in 2020 was integrated with RASFF using the IT tool that RASFF was already using, the iRASFF, as its basis. And now we have a full integration between those two systems. A little bit more about that later. What they have in common, first, they have in common that there are single contact points, so there's only one contact point per member state, member country, for the Alert and Cooperation Network, and for us, as it has always been, in case of urgent notifications, we can reach out to members outside of office hours. Now back to the Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed itself. How does it more or less operate? And this nicely projected in this slide. So we get information basically from, and this slide is a bit old, it's now EU 27 member states. plus EEA countries, plus Switzerland through a specific agreement. But we can also get feedback from non-members. It's just that non-members cannot make these original notifications. They can give feedback to notifications in which they are concerned, and they can do that because the Commission has the obligation and carries out the duty of informing involved non-members. A lot is happening through the iRASFF online platform, although the informing non-members and InfoSun is happening, and as you can see here, happening through the RAS window application. The European Food Safety Authority provides us with technical and scientific support specifically important in the case of what we're talking about here, the foodborne outbreaks. And the notifications, they carry information about risks involved, hazards found, food involved, what kind of product, feed, if it's feed or food contact material, traceability of consignments involved, and what kind of measures member states have taken in relation to those products. To streamline the information, we classify them in several different notifications. I'm coming back to that: information alert, news, and border rejection. And then the Commission is receptive, receives all the notifications, verifies them, and then transmits them to all network members. And then these network members, plus non-members involved, remember, they can start to make follow-up notifications to complete the investigation and the notification. That's the cycle of RASFF. What kind of information we're talking about in RASFF? Well, most of it is started or triggered by official controls, and it used to be, if you go a little bit back on the left side here, it used to be more than 50%. The bottom three colors here are triggered by border controls. Were triggered by border controls, because you can see that declining over time. So what do we have now? Well, market controls, that's the top, by official control, but also the trigger of the notifications more and more often company-owned checks. So business operators carrying out their own checks, finding a problem with a product that they have placed on the market. Food could be injurious to health. They have an obligation, and then under the general food law, to inform the authorities, and the authorities in turn, when they need cooperation from other authorities under the scope of RASFF, they will inform the rapid alert system. Now, I mentioned these notification types. The most important notification classification, as we call it, is the alert classification. And it's very simply defined. It's when a country notifies an issue for which there is rapid action needed by another member country. In that case, they have to file an alert. Makes sense. Now, the negative of alert is information notification. That's less urgent. Rapid action is not required. Could be for two reasons, and there's actually two types of information notification. First reason, information notification for follow-up, we call that, is the product is circulating on the market, so action is required, but it's not rapid action because we're not identifying a serious risk from our risk evaluation. No serious risk, either not serious or what we call undecided. So serious risk not, let's say, confirmed. Another type of information notification is when the product is not circulating on the market. Not yet circulating on the market. Maybe it was stopped somewhere, held somewhere altogether. It's all accounted for. It's not been distributed. Or what happens also is that it's already expired. It's already consumed. So the notification comes after the fact, but still can be useful when authorities want to investigate maybe other consignments of the same products by the same operators. Border rejections are also informed for the same reason. A product is stopped at the border, it may be redispatched, may be destroyed, or the risk may be eliminated, but if it's redispatched, we have to make sure it's not entering through another border post, and maybe there are other consignments from the same origin that could have the same defects, and therefore it's important to inform quickly in the system about these rejections. A news is very interesting for the scope of this presentation because it's got preliminary information, low threshold, doesn't have to be verified, but that could trigger the authorities to investigate further and to already exchange information for the purpose of confirming some information and to be able to take action. And when I say that, you should immediately think about foodborne outbreaks, because most often a foodborne outbreak doesn't start by identifying a food in which a risk occurs. No, it starts by people getting ill, links being made about these illnesses through epidemiological research or characterization of the strains. And then the whole search starts. Okay, which food could be the cause of this outbreak? And to reach to that conclusion, you already have to exchange a lot of information. So a news can help facilitate this investigation. So we've got the alert and cooperation network. It goes beyond the rapid alert system for food and feed. So how does it work really? They all use the same IT tool, iRASFF, and so stuff comes in to into the system, and authorities, including the Commission, they have to take decisions. The first decision is when you have something going on, you have to find out, okay, is it non-compliant with the legislation? When we have a non-compliance or a potential non-compliance, because sometimes you need cooperation from another authority to be able to confirm that there's a non-compliance, you can use the AAC system, administrative assistance. It's all about non-compliance and enforcement. A specific, and I haven't talked about that yet, form of non-compliance research is a fraud network. The Agri-Food Fraud Network is specialized in identifying fraud aspects. So not only non-compliance, but specifically if somebody has actually broken the law on purpose for the purpose of gaining advantage financially from it. So that's typically fraud. It could lead to criminal investigations, higher sensitive nature of the investigation. So therefore, the Food Fraud Network is a shielded network in iRASFF. You have to be a member of the Food Fraud Network to be able to get access to that information. Now, what I'm talking about is RASFF, so we're talking about health risks. The moment you identify there's a health risk or potential health risk involved, you can use the Rapid Alert System for food and feed. And if it's a serious health risk, you can upgrade or classify that notification to alert notification, provided that the product is circulating on the market, remember. Now, if we look at the Alert and Cooperation Network figures for 2021, you can see the following. And this is iRASFF on the left. You see RASFF notifications make the majority of notifications, original notifications in blue, AAC notifications quite a lot and actually growing over time also. But as you can see, follow-up much less. There doesn't seem to be the necessity to use follow-up a lot. The conversation module is used and is most often sufficient to provide the necessary feedback within the AAC. Not so for us. For us, the follow-up tool is very important, typically to enable traceability, to enable countries to take measures and to report back on those measures. For food fraud or fraud notifications, this is slightly not representing, it's about 200 here, it's not representing the total number, which is about the double. That's because the fraud notifications were introduced just before the middle of the year, 2021. If we look at RAS notifications, you can see the different classifications here. News is much less. It's not on the slide because it's a very low number, 20, 30, something like that. But you can see for alert notifications how important the follow-up is specifically there. And that speaks for itself because that's where the serious health risks are identified in products circulating on the market and therefore requiring rapid action. Now, foodborne outbreak. It's about time we talked about foodborne outbreaks, right? So I guess you talked about the definition of foodborne outbreak. This is a definition I got from somewhere that I don't even remember, but it's a good definition. And it also includes what multi-country foodborne outbreaks are about. And why I talk about multi-country? Because multi-country is sort of a trigger for us, because if a foodborne outbreak is related to one country, it could be interesting to notify it, because you never know that there could be involvement in other countries, especially if you haven't identified the source yet. But the moment you've identified that there is a multi-country, there are people ill in multiple countries, then this is an important outbreak, and it needs to be carefully and very resourcefully identified, investigated, I mean. Now, we've learned a lot over time, and we've learned a lot specifically from this example of a foodborne outbreak, and this is the multi-country outbreak of Shiga aflatoxin-producing E. coli 0104 in the year 2011. The so-called AHEC outbreak is called in Germany, because Germany was the main involved country where most cases occurred. More than 50 casualties, 50 people died, and a lot of products were investigated. It turned out to be a very difficult search for the source of the outbreak until the clue was provided by a similar outbreak that was identified to be about the exactly same strain in the region of Bordeaux in France. And then by comparing the investigation into the foods or potential causes between Germany and France, they could single it down to the fenugreek seeds, and even a specific batch of fenugreek seeds imported from Egypt, as the cause of the outbreak. And then that led finally to, but quickly, to traceability investigation of all kinds of formulations of these seeds, the seeds that have a very long durability on the market, and sprouts that were sprouted from these seeds, and all kinds of mixed salads, and to remove all these products from the market. With reason, because of the very high incidence of and very severe incidence of disease. Now, clearly, a lot was learned by EFSA. EFSA assisted the German authorities in the investigation and developed, together with the BFR, a methodology that's still used today for tracing products, foods, and trying to find the common elements and the hotspots in the foodborne investigation. Now, it's more than that, because this has also been the basis for an operating procedure between the ECDC, the European Centre for Disease Control, and EFSA on the so-called rapid outbreak assessment, where they put together human public health investigations, food chain investigations, and put that together in an analysis that looks at all the data and tries to find the source and the source of the outbreak successfully in a number of cases, not entirely conclusive in also a number of cases, because it's not always it's always very challenging to get all the necessary information, and to be lucky enough to have the information that holds the key to solving the outbreak. Another outbreak that taught us a lot and implemented these principles that I just mentioned is the Listeria monocytogenes. That's another type of pathogen in ready-to-eat, typically ready-to-eat products. Not only ready-to-eat, because we also had an interesting outbreak before that with frozen vegetables, which was an eye-opener, and has happened more often that people are not always using products the way we would expect them to. For instance, that we would expect them to cook frozen vegetables, but instead some were using these vegetables in a vegetable smoothie. And then, of course, any potential Listeria contamination could continue to infect the persons. Now, here we have a ready-to-eat meat product, and here the problem lay, and it has happened a number of times. This was a big one with cutting machines of these sliced, delicacy meat products here in the Netherlands. At first, leads to listeriosis cases that they can find are clustered by typing the products. in the Netherlands, but without having an exact clue what exactly could be the food product that caused it. This can take some time. In the meantime, there were also cases in Belgium. By comparing food information, it became clear that there was a specific Dutch producer that was common to many cases, and therefore it was decided to recall products at a wide scale from this producer. And a few days after, actually, there was confirmation by whole genome analysis that indeed the pathogen that was found in the meats, because there was some positive findings in the meats as well, matched with the human cases. You know that Listeria monocytogenes can have serious consequences, even though typically most people might support contamination quite well. In more vulnerable categories of people, this could lead to a lethal outcome, or pregnant women, also very dangerous. Now, therefore, it's very important that such an investigation is carried out very, very strongly, with an important role of a multidisciplinary approach. So this again showcased that a strong collaboration at national level as well as international level when it comes to a multi-country outbreak is crucial to deal successfully with such a multi-country outbreak. Another type of outbreak altogether is a very widespread but not easy to typify event with norovirus in raw shellfish. There was such a big event at the turn of the year 2019 to 2020. We have a lot of foodborne outbreaks events. So the number of events in France was up to 200 even. A lot of people affected. Not conclusive evidence, multiple norovirus genogroups, a lot of harvest sites closed because of the possible contamination with the norovirus, and many countries, 5 countries reporting events. Maybe there were more countries affected than that. When we looked at the events, we looked at the outbreaks, we looked at withdrawal of products, which zones were closed, and where the norovirus was detected on the shellfish, we could see clusters geographically. You could see a cluster here, this part of France, cluster there, over there, here. So you see in different geographical locations. The explanation for this was that there was an exceptional rainfall at that time over the whole coast of France here, which led to big, how's it called, inflow of water into these estuaria where the oysters were kept, and therefore polluted water and norovirus contamination. And that is so climate conditions or climatological exceptional conditions were here the cause of the outbreak. And this kind of extreme weather is something that you would expect more often due to climate change, and therefore clearly is a challenge linked to this type of outbreak. So we need to be prepared. We are prepared. We can do better. We learn from every outbreak. There's currently an outbreak going on with salmonella in chocolate products. Long time no seen, but it has happened in the past. Important to investigate the causes of this outbreak so that it's information to prevent future outbreaks. So trace back, investigation, analytical results, multidisciplinary approach, very important. RASFF plays a role there to distribute and provide information on the foodborne, the food investigations. But also afterwards, and specifically when a food has been identified as at risk, and it's not always with 100, it's usually not even with 100% certainty that you can identify a food. Very hard to get positive analysis on some food products, including in the current outbreak that we have on chocolate products, very hard to get evidence from an analytical point of view. So sometimes you have to put all the evidence together. It might not be 100% conclusive, but if it's all pointing in the same direction, you can not afford not to take any action. So there, when the products are taken off the market, it's RASFF that will play a critical role in ensuring that this is done rapidly, that all the products are identified as well as possible, and that countries can take these actions to take the products off the market, including countries that are not member and informed through the rapid alert system.